Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video brought to you by Kent Game Guides and Doke Doke. This one is going to be a 1v1 on Highway to Oslo in the new ranked mode. This is my first time playing the new ranked feature that was put into beta a couple days ago actually. Overall impressions were pretty good. There are some complaints on the forums about there being a timer and there not being enough reward for capturing sectors, and well, that income doesn't really mean anything, etc., etc. So it's a pretty lively debate about how this has all been implemented into the beta, and there's been some varying feedback. I'm once again using my Polish deck because I love napalm, and I'm sorry it's on Highway to Oslo again, but there just aren't that many maps to choose from here in beta, and being a ranked game I didn't have much of an opinion anyways. On this particular map I'm going to go to Fedor, as I do most of the time, and I'm going to do something that a lot of people don't do in 1v1s, and that is I'm going to stay on just one flank. So my objective is to stay on the left hand side of the highway and at all times push on that side, to not move over to Dmitry and center, etc. What I want to do is I want to go from Fedor to Elena to Boris. If I can do that, then I control 3 out of the 4 reinforcement points on the map, and that means I get to choose then how quickly his units can respond to my attacks, because then I can choose to attack in a position where it takes a long time for him to get his reinforcements from Anna. I have my starting units here, 4 units of AA, 4 recon units and a recon helicopter, and that's pretty important because I don't need to defend the whole right side of the map. I have no interest in doing that, but I do need to know when my opponent is trying to make a push on that side, or if my opponent is trying to flank me. By positioning these recon units, I'm going to be able to very quickly tell where I need to respond to. And because I will hopefully have more reinforcement points than him, I will be able to do so more quickly than he can. This is him saying I'm really bad, by the way. I don't think he played poorly at all. I actually really enjoyed this match. It's the first one to 2,000 points, and it came right down to the wire, and there'll be a bit of a surprise at the end of the match, so I hope you all enjoy it. But there are some very, very good fights in this one, even though they do take just a little while to develop. As usual, I have all my units moving en masse to one spot, and as they're en route, I'm designating specifically where I would like them to go. Also using a hotkey instead of having to manually select the entire group. I'm not going to try to make too much of a push on the left-hand flank through the woods to block the reinforcement point of Boris, as most of you have seen me do in the past. And the reason for that is my concentration is going to be on taking Elena and Boris, and less on stopping them from letting reinforcements come through Boris. If I can be a little bit of a hindrance, that's great. If not, it's fine. I was pretty happy to see this. He ends up taking center, which plays right into my philosophy. As a general rule of thumb, most Wargame Airland Battle players are cautious by nature. Most are. And even if I don't have any units on the right-hand side, at the very least, he's going to have to scout and move up slowly, so that way he doesn't overexpose himself. And that's worst case scenario, that he takes 10-15 minutes to take center, Dmitry, Gregory, and his starting point, Anna. And then it'd be a pretty close game then. But there are a few surprises in this one. Here, just again managing all my units, making sure I get the infantry there in the buildings. Big fan of having Fedor perfectly locked down before doing anything else. And something new to most of my viewers, you can see me being much more aggressive right now than I usually am. I'm already moving units up into Elena. He took center. It'd be pretty illogical for him to go from Anna to center to Elena. Certainly a possibility, but he would at the very least have to move units up through Boris first. in most situations. You can see on the right-hand side there I have 2 recon units. The one on the highway blocks all access on the highway from rushes down the center that I can't see, and the one to the right of it allows me to see anything that's coming in through Gregory or even a little bit of Dimitri, and the recon helicopter makes sure he's not just border hugging there along the side in the water. At this point I've got a lot of activity here with stuff moving up to Elena. I have 2 groups of infantry that I'm moving up through the woods, and I'm going to have 1 recon accompany it. And that's all. Main purpose of this force is just going to be, if he does get Boris, delay his reinforcements from reaching the field of battle. 4 minutes into the match and have not seen any of his units other than 1 Lynx, I believe it was. And everything's going well so far. Trying to get my stuff up there. Another note as well, if you do go with this strategy of just moving up through Fedor, Elena, Boris as quickly as you can, a lot of people find it helpful to not have Fedor as secured as I do, but for reasons that will be explained later, I do like to keep it locked down throughout the match. But for now, I'm just going to advance with a couple infantry at a time, recon and AA. Pulling up some T-55s because those Topaz that I moved up there to the south of Elena, they were empty after dropping off infantry. By just moving them up there, it showed me that he was not making an active push to Elena, and that it'd probably be safe to move up my T-55s. Also bringing up some AA support. Can never have enough of an airland battle, and there they are, the first chieftain tanks that we see in the match. And it's kind of interesting because here he's trying to cross the highway and try to take that central position. I get my anti-tank guided missile infantry inside that building just in time, and even though they're not hitting the chieftains at the moment, it's going to be just enough to dissuade them that it's not worth the risk of moving all the way up. I end up losing the Topaz, I believe it was. So I moved back my other one there just a little bit further. Moved back my AA just a little bit. I thought it was a little too far up. Perfectly fine with having it sit in that tree line by the Topaz sitting there. Something to be wary of every time you use infantry such as anti-tank guided missile infantry. They run out of ammo very quickly. And I was not on top of it soon enough here with getting my logistics forward deployed enough. If I had, who knows, I possibly would have been able to take in a couple of those chieftains, and a couple chieftains 5 minutes into the game can make a huge difference. So far on the left hand side, going fine, haven't encountered anything. And it's been a pretty quiet match so far. With a 40-minute time limit, generally people are more aggressive in these ranked matches. More AA and T-55s coming up there. Nothing on the right-hand side. I'm good there. Pretty safe and secure. At this point, I'm pretty happy that I've secured Elena. By having the positions that I have there, minus the one forest that I'm moving to in just a moment, that's enough to hold Elena. Move up my infantry now. I want to get him into those buildings as quickly as possible. He still has not taken Boris. However, at this point, I'm predicting he will now that he knows I'm on Elena and Fedor's side. He probably knows I have no interest in attacking him from the Dimitri and the Gregory side of the map. Got my T-55s there. I decided to move the recon up just a little bit, so that way I know exactly what might be in range of the T-55s. Still waiting for the logistics to get up there. And I see some strikers on the map. In this particular match, it's a perfect example of how to manage a ranged static front. And as confusing as that sounds, what I mean by that is just having a static front with me controlling all of Elena here, and pretty much us just controlling our units, micromanaging them just outside of the range of things that can counter them. So for example, the strikers, him keeping them just out of range of my own anti-tank guided missiles, but just within range of my T-55s to knock them out. Up here, I move up my AA, trying to take out his Gazelle Recon. Those Gazelle Recons are critical in these matches because it allows him to see exactly what I'm reinforcing my position with. And after 3 shots, they all missed, and I was very, very upset with my anti-air. I brought up some anti-tank guided missile infantry there to that little forest. I kind of call this the 3 points of Elena. If you have that forest, the forest to the left, just southwest of that supply truck, and that building in the center, you can usually effectively hold Elena. Having the buildings north only help even more. I decide to move up my CV, and it's time to get the income advantage in this match. You see my guided missile infantry continuing to fire on the strikers. Not going to let the same thing happen again, so I call up another logistics truck. And as most of you have probably noticed, I do not generally play my games by utilizing a FOB, and that's a personal preference. You can use it, you cannot use it. Neither one means you're playing wrong. But my logic behind it is that it's 100 points that's stationary, and that you can't defend well against counterattacks. And when you're playing to 2,000 points, many games you play will be decided by 100 points, or sometimes even less. So yes, it does cost me the 15 points in logistics trucks that I have to bring up instead of just being able to refuel the logistics trucks. I do think it's a worthwhile trade-off. Up there, he's got some Sarkans moving up through Boris, so I try to have my infantry knock him out. He continues to barrage my position with artillery, and that's the theme that he has going throughout the game. Taking aim, fire, fire. Let's hope he gets one of them. And miss. I felt like the accuracy gods were against me in this particular match, but I'll let the viewers be the judge of that. I do get one of them there. There were no infantry inside, so it's just a measly 5 points. But I'll take it, because now the match is 40 points to 10. I just doubled my points. 10 minutes have gone by in the match. First 5 minutes in pretty much any game are generally calm. Next 5 minutes are where things start to heat up. Between 30 and 20 minutes is usually where the battle's going to be decided. Some ways, sometimes down to the 15-minute mark, but not often. Pulling up those logistic trucks there to refill my anti-air as well. And gonna try again to take out the Gazelle Recon. And this is me getting frustrated. It's taking so long. You can see me there watching how long it's taking to fill up the singular missile to fire. Not done, etc. But he'll get there eventually. And this is me zooming in, making sure that he actually is close enough. There we go. Got one missile. Aiming. Finally take Elena with that CV. And on my left-hand side, as soon as I take it, I see he moves up some Sarkans. And that's an instant cue for me that, wait a minute, I actually don't have my flank in between Elena and the far left protected. So I move up some T-72s, and I want to position them on that highway there in that tree line, so that way any advance I can pick off. A perfect counter to that would be having anti-tank guided missile infantry that is within range of those T-72s guarding my left flank, and you will see that Nocti adopts that pretty quickly. Moving up logistics there to my forward position. Calling in another truck or two. And overall, I'm pretty happy with how this has been going. I did get that Gazelle Recon, which is why I suddenly have 90 points, and I feel like a big shot. But I do feel like it's going a little slow. And I'm getting a little frustrated with myself and my inability to keep everything supplied and positioned. Over there, I see a missile come flying out at me, and and that gives me a pretty distinct impression that he has unloaded anti-tank guided missile infantry in those buildings. And I feel like I kind of saw that coming. He's got a Lynx just flying in, no cover, anything like that, directly at my position. And upon reflection, I figure this has got to be a mistake, because when infantry in a forest take down your helicopter, it's pretty unique. And actually, I think he actually took out my troop carrier with that helicopter crashing. Otherwise, I don't know what did. Huh. Stupid things that happen, huh? Over there you can see I have my tanks guarding the left flank. The CV is kind of vulnerable without those there, because the infantry to the north of them really can't stop much. They're just a deterrent to really bog and slow down any advancing forces. The real defense that I have in Elena is the anti-tank guided missiles. When players just try to push the borders and see exactly how strong your defenses are, when they see 3 or 4 missiles come flying at their unit, even if they don't puncture the armor, do any damage, or they all miss, it still sends a signal to that player, hey, maybe I should back off. I don't want to lose everything I have trying to get there. This is me moving up some more units. I was going to put some anti-tank guided missiles there in the forest that I already have the infantry. The T-72 is taking some hits, but so far is doing just fine. My infantry vehicle carrier, though, the Scott, I should have realized it wouldn't be strong enough to take a hit from those missiles. So I did lose that. And now it's a whopping 115 points to 100 points. It's going to be a nail-biter, guys. I decide now that I wanna push the envelope and make an advance. I pull in 3 artillery. I have no interest in engaging in his game of barrage, counter-artillery barrage, and a war of attrition. I want to take Boris, and that's the only thing that I'm thinking right now, is that if I can get Boris, then I'm going to have a huge, not only income advantage, but a positioning advantage. That means that I'm going to be able to pull in my reinforcements just hundreds of meters away from where the battle will be taking place at Boris's reinforcement point. And that would be absolutely huge. So I pull in the artillery, and they are going to be used to create a smoke screen for my advance. As a player, try to examine how you execute your advances and your offensives. If you know even where your opponent has their defensive units and what type they are, you can make a push with smoke and just about any units you want. Cheap T-55s if you want, because surrounding them in smoke means that no unit has a range advantage, and it's going to be the people with the most guns that wins. So if you can put in more, say, T-55s or cheap infantry into a position that is just covered in smoke, you will win most of the time because you have more guns firing than they do. And there is no range advantage, there is no armor advantage, because so much is going to penetrate when you're at that close proximity. Pull up a recon, got the artillery going up there. Just pulling back some of my logistics. And again, happy how the match is going. And we're approaching just 23 minutes left here. And I'm trying to take some pot shots at his strikers he has there on the right-hand side. But with 23 minutes left, the players will generally, at the 20-minute mark, start to get a feeling of, hey, I need to do something. So let's do something. Finally knock out one of those strikers. They were really kind of pissing me off a little bit. See the Sarkans there, not quite able to reach them with my PPKs. Pulling up the logistics truck there to resupply everyone. And there are the beautiful artillery. Now, one of the reasons that I don't actually use these to, say, barrage the Sarkans or to try to counter barrage his artillery is this. Up until this point, play style of my opponents that I've identified is that he uses artillery quite frequently. And one of the play styles that he has noticed is that I have yet to counter barrage him with anything. So he probably believes that I have no interest in using artillery on this map, and for conventional purposes I don't. But this means the first time he's going to see artillery shells, I'm launching smoke. And this is one of the reasons why this battle gets so interesting. The moment I launch my smoke, he smokes Elena. For the viewers out there, this doesn't happen very often. The same moment that you launch smoke, your opponent launches smoke on your defensive position. I move up my infantry. I have 3 topos worth of infantry. I'm going to move them straight up into that middle of the cloud of smoke there. My opponent's not going to be able to see me coming at all. They're not going to get a shot off until I'm firing at them. And I was going to advance with the T-72s there and other units I have on the left-hand side. But since I see the smoke and suddenly I see a couple dozen units on my right all advancing on my positions, I decide that would be a pretty horrible idea at the moment. He has 4 chieftains coming from the side. Out of the right-hand side there you can see missiles being fired between positions and Dmitri in my right flank. I knock out 2 units of Milan infantry there in the building. It's exactly what I wanted to do. I move up my T-72s so that way they'll be able to flank any tanks that advance to the north of Elena. I possibly should have kept them back to defend just head-on in Elena, but I wanted to hit them on the side. I move my infantry further up there onto the hill of Boris. I knock out some more infantry vehicle carriers. The T-72s finish off the last 2 groups of Milan there sitting in the buildings, and that's a good thing because they're firing at my T-72s in Elena. And sadly the chieftains knock out one of the T-72s. I knock out the Milan infantry. My infantry up there in Boris, they were very successful. I now have to worry about the fact that they penetrated the right-hand side of Elena. I call in 2 Su-78 bombers, and I launch napalm strikes, hoping to stun and panic them. I got a little bit of friendly fire on my own guys there, and I did lose both the bombers. I did not take into account that he had moved his AA as far up as Dmitri on my right-hand side, and that's ultimately what shot down the bombers. So a mistake on my part for assuming his infantry was backed by Boris in center. I continue my push into Boris. I'm hoping, I know I'm not going to take Boris with those units, but I'm hoping I can catch his CV unawares, or maybe just embed the infantry there, so that way he has to distract from his attack, or he gets distracted from his attack here. I'm sitting here yelling at the T-55, he's 4 meters out of range, won't move up, so I position him manually. I now find that he has javelins and 20 Royal Marines in the buildings there. I go for the javelins. The objective is to get to 2,000 points. I'm not going to win a toe-on-toe advantage, or a toe-on-toe fight against Royal Marines. I just want the points from the javelins. I decide to pull back my command vehicle. There are some points in this game that retreating is a perfectly acceptable and the best strategy. I should have moved back my AA as well, but I did not think of that at the time. His chieftains have clearly made their presence felt there in the middle, and I look around for my AA thinking, is there anywhere that I can really fire to stop this assault? I didn't quite realize they were within range and being shot at by the chieftains though, so I am going to lose them. And now that I know where his forces are committed, I call in my counter-attack of T-55s. Over here, I only have the towpaths left. The infantry have all been killed. I move them up just in vain hope that the CV is in one of those forest patches, but I am going to end up losing those. T-72 there on the top left that I have selected. You can call that T-72 Superman because he lasts longer than I've ever seen any tank last in an engagement. He just defies all odds. He's surrounded by chieftains there. You can see the shells coming at him from right and left, but he's going to end up doing just fine. 3 T-72s moving up. Technically speaking, the chieftains are no match for them in a head-on-head engagement, so I'm going to end up taking out one there. Another I'll get pretty soon. Over here, he brings in a Chinook as reinforcement. I try desperately to shoot it down. I don't think he had realized at this point that I had any units there, because I don't think I'd killed anything he had reinforced himself with. Take out both the chieftains on the right there. Now I go for the ones in the center. I knock one of them out. My 5 infantry are proving the perfect annoyance that I want them to be. Another chieftain's down. I'm feeling pretty good at this point because this is really, it's advanced the game, and I feel like I'm going to be able to counter this attack. Another chieftain down. He's got 3 chieftains left there, and you see that he's moving up his strikers, and I feel like he probably did this just a little too early, because if I get these chieftains gone, those strikers, if I move up to close enough range, they're not going to be quite as effective. The real advantage of the strikers and anti-tank guided missiles is the fact that they can hit you from anywhere. My T-55s there, you saw me zooming in. I wanted to see if there wasn't perhaps a dip in the road that I could sneak them around to his right-hand side, but there wasn't. I've lost 2 T-72s now because the strikers were hitting me from the side. So at this point, I get the T-55s and the T-72s, and I decide to focus fire there on the striker on the right. I move back my command vehicle even further. I still don't think he had spotted it. My T-72, the Superman, is still fighting against the 2 chieftains. Knock out one of the strikers there with my T-55s. Continue to try to knock out the second. I have 1 singular infantry unit left in those buildings. It's going to prove to be quite critical. And at this point, I kind of want to engage the chieftain. I knock him out with the T-55s on the right. Now, I could have maybe advanced to take out the striker, but I wanted to get the easy, quick kill there with the Sarkhan. And this is the type of moment that can change the battle. I decide to move up the 6 tanks instead of pulling them back. I should have pulled them back. I did not have enough support for them, and I was pretty much playing into the advantage of my opponent by giving them the range of the strikers. There was just no way I was going to advance quick enough without getting hit on the flanks, so I decided to pull them back all the way. The T-72 has taken out one of the chieftains on the left. Superman continues to be effective. He is now bringing in a couple chieftains from Boris reinforcement point, and I decide to pull my recon up on the chieftain's left flank, desperately hoping that I can kill him from his side armor. He has brought in Harriers and such, trying to bomb my units, but so far they really have not been that effective. And here you can see he's brought in 4 or 5 chieftains. I don't actually, I believe, get any kills from this, but what is so critical is that those cheap little infantry units sitting there in that building are going to hold off 5 tanks, which he can use as reinforcements for minutes. And when there's only 14 minutes left in the game, those not being able to affect the battle for another 4 or 5 minutes means so much, and probably kept me alive in this game. I now have a point advantage of 1185 to 1265. However, if you notice, he now has an income advantage over me since I have lost Helena. My recon is firing on the side of the chieftain focuses fire on my recon instead of the T-72, and he calls in a friend, a chieftain Mark 10. The chieftain goes down. I now try focusing fire on the chieftain Mark 10, which is going to be equally difficult. And again, 12 infantry just keeping those chieftains from doing any good to the battle. My recon tries to help him out, but it's not going to do quite as well as he did on the right side. I now call in a couple more T-72s. And this is actually the exact type of fight I want, is as a packed player, I want my opponent to advance without AA support and try to fight me on an open field with tanks. As a pack player, you can't dream or hope for anything more than that. But as I find out, he doesn't quite give me my wish. So I decide to pull back my T-55s there to the ridge line. I tried moving up my AA because I was going to try to quickly snipe that Gazelle while his other forces were distracted, but it didn't work. I lost the infantry there at the reinforcement point of Boris, but again, it was so important how long they kept those sitting there. Kind of examining my current positions, I notice a few of my units have run out of ammunition or are getting low on fuel and such. So I'll start calling in logistics trucks to handle that. But this ridge line, if you're not familiar with the map, is one of the best defensive positions you can have in any of the maps that they have out currently, because the only way for your opponent to really shoot at you with conventional tanks or infantry vehicles, etc., is to cross that ridge. And as soon as they cross that ridge, if you position your forces well enough, you can have every single tank at your disposal firing at the same unit one at a time as they're crossing over the crest of the ridge. And there's only a couple points they can cross at. So if you can catch them from all sides, they're either going to get stunned and panicked right away, or you're going to destroy them with your first couple shots. Either way, it works out great for you. Of course, the counter to this would be popping some smoke, so I don't know when you come over the ridge, and the next thing I know, your entire force is sitting on a level playing field with me. T-72s, I thought about trying to hit those strikers and those chieftains as they're crossing the field, but I was just way too outnumbered, so I decided against it. And a lot of people, again, feel like if you retreat, you're just going to lose the battle anyways. And I feel like this match is kind of a perfect example of how that's not true. My recon there tried picking off some infantry, so naturally got barraged by multiple missiles. But again, back to my other point, retreating, especially in a match where your only objective is to kill things, can be very, very useful. Right now, I have the superior position by being on top of the ridge. You could say I have the high ground, and that means he can either wait out for a draw, or he can try to advance on my position. And he's talking in chat something about, I think his fiance was bothering him or something like that. But please, viewers, remember that drawing back strategically can be very helpful for you and can be the difference between you winning or losing a game. I probably saved myself a couple hundred points. Actually probably more like 350, 400 points by drawing back all my units and my CV. And what that does is he would be at about 1,800 points right now if I hadn't drawn back my forces. That means he can attack and know that he only has to kill 200 points worth of my forces, and he can lose up to 700 points of his forces. On any attack, you can manage 200 points if you can lose up to 700. But because we're both sitting here evenly at 13 and 13, he knows that he has to kill 700 of my units, and I can't lose more, and that he can't lose more than 700 of his units, all with me having a superior defensive position. And ultimately, I think he does kind of make the decision to just say, I'm going to accept a draw. Because he doesn't come up in advance here. My one infantry unit there is another perfect example of how useful small little things can be. I have eyes on everything that he has up there. And if he does make a move into LNS, say with a CV, or he tries to capture it, I'm going to know if he makes that move. And that will allow me the opportunity and the option to counter it if I can. Without those eyes there, without that infantry there, I'm not going to be able to see if he moves in, and it limits my options. By having more options available, I become a more competitive and viable player. I could also put up a recon on the ridge line, but even though it has very good optics, or it might just be good, I can't recall, it's not going to be able to see as far as those infantry can. And looking back on it, he should have... It's hard to remember, but he should have known that he didn't kill that unit of infantry in there, and he probably should have pushed for it just a little bit earlier. He's sitting here toying with me with his Gazelle Recon, and I desperately just want to pick it off, but he keeps landing it and moving it, landing it and moving it. It's just upsetting me. 8 minutes left now in the game. From all appearances, this is going to just be a draw. Not that much that can happen other than him making a move or me trying to rush down onto the plane. Over here, just managing my AA. I notice I don't have quite as much on the right, and I kind of had a feeling he might try to make a push on the right-hand side, just because I didn't have any forces there. Now, I just lost that infantry. Look how dark all of Elena became. I have 0 eyes on any of his units now. I pull up a recon there, just as I mentioned on the ridge line, and call in some T-55s, and make the decision that I don't want to draw. Few people ever want to draw, but it's better than losing the match. He continues to arty barrage my anti-air. But what I'm about to do here is, you've heard me mention before on Highway to Oslo, that the highway in the center of the map, it sits in a dip or a valley below the field of vision of everything else on the map. And because of that, you can go from one side of the map to the other without your opponent ever seeing you if he doesn't have eyes on the highway like I have my recon positioned. And that is incredibly crucial that you have that there, because you if he has nothing there, I'm going to be able to take all my tanks, run them all the way up to Boris, Anna, and Center, and kill all of his CVs, only giving him maybe 30-40 seconds of notice, which is not enough to effectively counterattack my offensive. So I'm taking about a dozen T-55s, a couple T-72s, going to move some supply trucks down to the highway and make sure that all these units are fully fueled. And another importance of retreating strategically is that some of those units I've had last since the beginning of the match. Some of those T-72s are from the beginning. So never forget the importance of having units at your disposal by retreating them. I do take another shot at the Gazelle. I miss. Makes me sad and hurt inside. So I try again. I keep on trying. Aim, fire. Am I gonna get him? No. Goes out of range. Another artillery barrage. I pull back further. Look at all that artillery for the 1AA. But when you're in a match this close, 45 points can end up being the difference. I now have my dozen or so T-55s and T-72s sitting over there on the highway. I'm going to wait for the logistics to get there to make sure they're all fueled up. I don't want to make an embarrassing rush and have my units get halfway down the map and run out of fuel. I'd look pretty stupid if I did that, and I wouldn't be sharing it all with you if it happened. So don't worry about that. I'm really running out of time here. I don't think I was quite conscious enough of how much time I did have left, and how long it would take me to get everything in position for this push, but we'll see if I end up with a win because of it. I don't know if you saw the 80 points pop up in the air, but I became a very happy and jubilant man when that AA finally took out that Gazelle Recon. Made me very, very happy, and it's now a dead even tie, 1385 to 1385 for points. Another great thing about having that recon gone is he would have seen my advance coming up the center much more quickly had he still had that. Another important thing when you do this is if you're repositioning a large amount of your units from one side of the map to the other, trying to get them in position, try to make sure to micromanage exactly their path to your target location. If I just click move fast on all these units, there's a possibility that a few of them may have then moved themselves within range of the recon of my opponent. Over there you can see their artillery sitting in the middle of the highway, hoping I can get all of those and get some added points. So, the offensive is beginning. I'm moving up all my tanks. And I'm really hoping this is going to work out. I see some logistics trucks sitting there in the middle of the road. In all honesty, I don't want them to be there, because it's just going to be one more thing for me to micromanage if I end up capturing them. There's also a Chinook hiding behind them there. They're going. Kind of cool seeing all those tanks move so quickly up the middle of the map. And my objective here is to go to center, go to Boris, split up my units, and try to get the CV in each of those. If I get the CV in each of those and his artillery, I'll probably come up almost with exactly 2,000 points, which will be enough for the match win. However, I only have 2 minutes left here, so it's really coming down to the wire. 120 points for knocking out his artillery. That felt pretty good, not gonna lie. He notices my advance, and he's gonna try to counter it here in just a second. I did buy a MiG you saw there, and that's just because I felt like he may try to counter my attack with attack helicopters. And if he chose something juicy, say the equivalent of an Apache attack helicopter or something, I am more than willing to trade a MiG for an Apache, especially at this point. I move my recon up there to center, move up the tanks. I should have split these sooner than I did. I should have moved just one recon there, and I should have moved the other more quickly over to Boris. But hindsight's bitter. He brings in some Harriers. I get really worried that's going to take out a lot of my forces there from the air bombs. I see a CV, just as I thought. It was right on the edge, as close to the border as he could have it to center. 140 points for me. I now need 355 points to win the match. Gather my units here, and I try splitting them. I was kind of hesitant. I was going to have them move all the way into center and hope there's more stuff for me to take out, like AA and such. But I just overall made the decision, if he had them, he probably would have moved them up as soon as he saw me take out his artillery. I don't think he's going to have much there. He pulls in some links. I draw on my MiG. I forgot about his AA that was sitting over there in Dimitri, so I lose the MiG. It's going to be a photo finish here, guys. 8 T-55s moving their way into Anna. 30 seconds left. Desperately trying to get there quicker. If I can get an FOB and a CV and maybe kill a helicopter or two, it's going to give me the match. This is actually another perfect example of not having an FOB. If I do kill his FOB and CV, it's going to be pretty much into the game. He's calling in more attack helicopters there. The tows aren't able to do that much against my T-55s, but I didn't get there in time. It was a draw. I'm sorry to anyone who doesn't like watching replays that end in draws, but you're going to have to suck it up this time. I thought it was a great match. It was very competitive. Nocti played very well, and I really enjoyed the challenge that he provided. So that's my first video on the new ranked feature inside Airland Battle Wargame Beta. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave comments, questions, likes, and subscribes on the channel. And I look forward to seeing all of you next time on the next video that we do here. Have a great day, everyone.